None would be admitted to the circle of great powers, and it had been naval strength that, to a large measure, had gained Japan admittance to this exclusive club.
But it was an expensive club to join. In 1922, the Western powers signed a treaty limiting the size of their fleets. As the newest member of the fraternity, the Japanese were forced to go along.
There was a great deal of resentment in Japan because British and Americans were allowed to have 15 battleships each. The Japanese were only allowed 9.
Japan wasn't about to lose the arms race. They began to think, we'll never be able to compete with the US and Britain on sheer numbers alone. But we will be able to build one really superb battleship that could destroy many ships on the other side. They needed to build this ship in utter secrecy.
There were rumors that the Japanese were building ships of unusual size, but the stories were dismissed by one United States Navy spokesman privately as, quote, Nipponese rodent propaganda, unquote. It's part of a pattern of underestimating the Japanese.
The construction of the world's largest, most powerful battleship began in complete secrecy at the port of Kure. To block the view from the outside, sailors stretched a mile of fishermen's netting around the largest dry dock in Japan. No one in Kure had access to the entire set of plans. Sakutaro Nishihata was one of the designers of the mysterious vessel.
Each day, when we finished drawing, we would have to return our plans to our supervisor, who would lock them in a safe. There is a Muruhai chop here which designates the plan as top secret. I was building the biggest ship in the world, and I didn't even know it until after the war.
Today, our knowledge of the Yamato's design is fragmentary. Just a few drawings and a handful of photographs have survived. We do know that the scale of the Yamato was staggering, almost twice the displacement of any Allied battleship. Each of her 3 gun turrets weighed more than an entire American destroyer. Her main guns were designed to attack at an unprecedented range of 25 miles. At such a distance, the target would be invisible. Spotter planes would be needed to direct the fire over the horizon. The ship was intended to be one of the most advanced weapons systems of her time. The battleship Yamato joined the fleet in December 1941. To keep the ship's design secret, there was no public celebration at the port of Kure.
Because of our reading of Japanese signals traffic, American intelligence analysts realized that the new flagship of the combined fleet was named Yamato. Knowing the name was, of course, fine, but it told us nothing about the capabilities of the ship.
In Japan, the ship's name had a special, almost religious significance. The word Yamato was a poetic synonym for Japan itself.
You couldn't get on the Yamato unless you had the top grades. So if you made it, it was a great honor.
I thought how big it is. For a couple of days, I didn't even know how to get back to my own quarters. Everyone was like that. All of us boarded thinking it would never sink. It was encased in the finest thick steel, so it would have to be safe.
For us, the Yamato sinking was as unlikely as Japan sinking.
But in spite of what her crew believed, the battleship Yamato was not unsinkable. As more of the vessel is revealed, It becomes clear to the divers that they have one of the largest shipwrecks of all time. The true scale of the vessel had once been a state secret.
If the Americans discovered that the Japanese were building such a huge vessel, it would diminish the power of the ship. That was not acceptable. So, even the ship's commanding officers weren't told about the true size of the Yamato.
Japanese secrecy had proved to be ironclad. U.S. naval analysts believed that the Yamato was about the size of the new American battleships.
But the Yamato was really almost twice as large as the Americans thought. The ship had to be so large because she was built around her guns, the biggest guns ever mounted on a warship. Exploring the gaping hole left where a gun turret once rested, it becomes difficult to imagine the scale of the Yamato's firepower.
When they fired their guns, they would sound a bugle. When you heard that, you would have to take cover and go like this. You could get thrown 2 to 3 meters if you stood still.
Firing 18-inch projectiles at supersonic speeds, with each shot weighing as much as an automobile, the Yamato's guns could punch a hole in armor almost 2 feet thick. To support the weight and recoil of such massive guns, the Yamato needed to be unusually wide. As a two-ocean navy, the width of American warships was limited by the locks of the Panama Canal.
The American designers had to struggle always with the problem that their battleships had to fit in the 110-foot wide locks of the Panama Canal. The biggest American battleships were 108 feet 6 inches wide, a very tight fit indeed.
But the Yamato didn't need the Panama Canal. She was designed to dominate the Pacific. The extra width allowed the Yamato to be fitted with the thickest ship's armor ever constructed.
The ship was very wide. Because of the increased resistance from the waves, it would not be hydrodynamic.
For decades, naval architects had struggled to reduce resistance by experimenting with the shape of ships' bows. The width of the Yamato made such streamlining imperative.
We produced 50 wax models of varying shapes and experimented with those. The result of those tests led to the concept of the bulbous bow.
There was a kind of bulbous bow already being used on some American warships, but it was quite conservative in shape. But the Yamato had a huge bow that jutted out 3 meters.
As it moves through the water, the bow of a ship creates a constant wave. The Yamato's bulb produced its own wave a few feet in front of the ship, which canceled out the wave generated by the ship itself. With less wave action, the drag of the water was reduced.
The bow reduced the resistance of the waves by 7 or 8%, and it increased the speed of the ship to an extraordinary 28 knots.
The expedition has located the Yamato's front section sitting upright on the ocean floor. The unique silhouette of the bow is clearly visible,